Hello there, everyone who's joining and who will be watching this. Happy Friday. I'm so excited for today's coffee talk guest. We have licensed educational psychologist Tara Eddy joining us today to talk all about the game that she has created for your kids ages 5 to 12 and for all the nannies out there with charges in that age range looking for something that is a problem-solving game where they're able to use their emotional expression throughout. So I can't wait. Let me just bring her in real quick. Hello, everybody. Hi. Tara.
Hey.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for joining. And for those who don't know, we have a very dear friend in common. So I'm always so pleased to make that connection. Of course, someone as wonderful as Lainey to bring us together is so great. And so I'd love just for you to start by sharing more about you and what your background is, and then we'll take it from there.
That sounds great.
Hey, Lainey.
Say that again?
Oh, sorry. It looks like Lainey just joined in. I was just saying we were singing your praises a second ago.
Shout out to Lainey for connecting us.
Yes.
So I am a mom of two kids. I have a 3.5-year-old and I have a 7-month-old who was actually born right at the start of the pandemic.
Oh my gosh.
So and I'm an educational psychologist. I have a therapy and evaluation practice supporting kids, teens, and young adults. And then there's a reason why I'm here today, which is that I'm also the founder and CEO of a company called Feelings in Motion. And we've designed a new way to approach emotional learning for kids, one that is movement-based, that gets kids out of their seats and using their bodies when they're building some of these really critical skills. And Stomp It Out is our first finished product.
Yes.
And it is a game that includes really robust material to support kids' emotional growth and emotional intelligence in fun, dynamic ways. It's really easy to facilitate. It teaches feeling identification, emotional vocabulary, emotional expression, problem solving, all the things that we need a little extra of right now.
Absolutely, and especially now, I mean, with this pandemic and something that we as parents, it's new for us. So we're stepping on this new territory where our kids are looking at us, and maybe not ours necessarily for their ages, but parents are dealing with this where their kids are saying, how do I deal with this? Why does this have to happen? You know, what's happening? What are these emotions I'm feeling with? And our job is to give them the tools of how to cope and how to express themselves in a constructive way. And the fact that nothing like this exists on the market just gets me even more excited for you because I think it's so long overdue. And so that's really my question. I mean, how did this all come about? How did Stomp It Out come about? Was it pre-pandemic or during the pandemic or because of the pandemic?
Oh my gosh. Well, so it's actually definitely pre-pandemic. And I was a school psychologist at the time, and I was working with a group of students who just really needed to learn in a different way. And I needed to teach them how to read emotion in faces and how to build their vocabulary, how to be willing to sort of talk about what was going on for them emotionally, and then certainly to how do I cope, how do I problem solve. And they needed to move, they needed to be out of their seats and learning in a different way. And I look everywhere. I mean, everywhere from your Amazon and your Targets to creative therapy store where therapists go to look for games.
Yeah.
And I just could not find something that sort of was in line with the vision that I had.
Right.
And so I thought, okay, well, I'll make it. So I made just a very basic prototype of the game to use with these kids. And it wasn't nearly the sort of dynamic, wonderful visual tool that it is now. It was a much more rudimentary version of the game, but it incorporated that movement. And they took to it immediately.
Oh.
And these kids that had such a hard time working on these skills didn't have a hard time anymore. And it made it so much easier to approach the skills that I wanted to teach them. And I went from, building this prototype of this game to being like, okay, well, now I have to make this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's really
your market research told you that automatically,
yes.
which is amazing. That's really amazing. So, tell me about that process. Just in the, you had kind of your prototype. What were the next steps? Figuring out who to design it for specifically, or how did that?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So it turns out it takes a lot to make a game, and so it's a bit of a lengthy process.
Yeah.
There's definitely like a big research process too, where you're using it in different forms with kids, creating the visuals. I had a wonderful artist who helped me build some of the visual mats, which shout out to him if he's listening. Jerry Montoya, he's an educator and an artist, and he actually was working with the children that I built it to support. So we tested it with tons of different kids, changed things over and over to make sure they could really read the faces, they really understood it. And then once I had a much more robust prototype, still not nearly what it is now, but just a larger, more put together version, I asked 5 different psychologists throughout Santa Monica and Los Angeles to test the game with a number of their students.
Right.
So I was really able to get lots of data, incorporate feedback, and then you take that and move into your production phase.
Sure.
And then there was another piece around, so I was, about to hit go on production, and then pandemic hits. And
a little thing called the pandemic.
little
thing called COVID-19. No big deal,
Yeah, no big deal. Just life-changing. So I, was looking at this game, and I thought, well, kids need to process this.
Yeah.
This process, they need to learn how to be able to even just talk about what's going on for them and even identify what it is that they're feeling about any of it. And so I said, all right, I'm going to wait. I'm going to add these situations into the game so that when I have it out in the world, it includes it already. So it's built in. It has lots of situations that are COVID related for kids to grapple with, figure out, problem solve through. Certainly when there are things that we can change, that's, looking at problem solving. And when
right.
we can't change, it's looking at coping, right? And it includes that all in the game.
That's amazing. So can you kind of walk through an example of how to play the game even? Is that just that top secret info?
No, it's not. It's so not. I can't physically show you.
Right.
My camera skills are not that good.
Right.
But what I can definitely show you some of the material. So
yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, there's some pre-teaching that happens first. So you, as the person who's facilitating the game, you need to look at your material and be get a sense of what it is.
Right.
There are big feeling mats. I'm gonna hold them up here.
Oh, how cool! Yeah.
They're sort of oversized on purpose. And so those need to be taught first so the kids understand what they are. And if you're playing with, 5 to 12 is a big age range. If you're playing with little ones, 3 mats at a time, 5 mats at a time, great. If you're playing with older kids, they can totally have a huge circle with 10 of them and do a little bit more. So you teach what those are. There are situation cards that are color-coded that have exactly what the topic is and also a grade estimate on the bottom. So you can even see this one. This is, there's always positive situations that you can pull from so kids don't only focus on some of those negative or more challenging situations. And it has a grade estimate at the bottom, and this one.
Can you read that to us? Sorry, it's just hard to see. If you could read that to us.
It says it's one of the positive situations, and it says you did something brave. And so you pick out situations that you think are going to work for the kids that you're playing with. You can play it with just one. I've done that a million times as well. So you pull those out. You set your mats around the room. If there's multiple kids or just one, they stand in the middle. And you have them move to the mat to show how they would feel given the situation presented. But here's where the fun starts. So you don't just move. You get to create cool movement to get there. So instead of walking over to a mat, they can crab walk, they can stomp, they can hop, they can twirl, and they get to pick their movement and how they want to get there. And
love that.
The result of that is that it's not vulnerable to answer the question anymore. They're so focused on well, what silly movement am I going to do to get over to there, that they're not nearly as focused on I'm actually answering kind of a big question right now. and it allows them to start. And once you're in it, it's easy. It's always like the getting started with some emotional stuff that's hard. Starting the hard conversations, or like all of that stuff tends to be much more challenging than actually doing it. So it just takes all the vulnerability away. They move to those mats. If you're with children who are more verbal, you can talk about how they landed, why they landed there, share some of your experiences. If you are at a stage where you've been playing quite a lot and they're well versed in that process, there's tons of problem solving cards where then you can take some of the situations that you've just processed emotionally. Be like, all right, so let's figure these out together. And have them come up with, you're showing them the cards with all these strategies on them, and talking about what they look like, and the kids can help figure out, like, oh, that would probably work pretty well, or that's probably a bad idea and won't work very well given this situation. And you really help them work it through, but you do it with a set of tools that's easy to use, where you're not kind of making it up on the cuff, and they're playing, so they're having a lot of fun, and it's way more approachable to teach the material.
Definitely. Now, how have you seen directly, because you have worked with kids? I mean, you've actually used the game as a tool for you and your students. How have you seen it help your own students? How has Stomp It Out, helped those kids, or kids that you've seen directly?
Yeah, it's such a great question. So this is like all about access. There are lots of ways that we approach our kids when we're talking to them about emotions, when we're talking about the situations that they've been in. And lots of kids find that difficult. So what this game does is it opens it up and makes it easy for almost any kid of any background to be able to do the work. Right. And so one of the things so that's sort of like the general. There's definitely a couple groups of kids that this is like, they need this. And so I should talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
And so kids who really need to move, who don't work very well just like sitting in their chair, and like, shout out to the moms, dads, and nannies out there who've been doing Zoom school with students who learn a little bit more hands-on or more movement-based. They need this game, and there isn't anything right now that is out there that teaches the skills in that way. So for those kids, they definitely need the game. For kids who are a little bit more resistant or have a little bit more difficulty talking about emotions, those kids really need the game, because it's going to make it so much easier for them to actually learn the skills, and it's not going to be a sort of a struggle or this sort of awkward pulling teeth to get them to be able to process some of the things that they're going through. So one like little example, when I was actually making the game, that has stood with me the entire time, and is one of the reasons why I ended up making it to begin with, is I was working with one of the students that I designed it for. And he really had difficulty reading emotion in faces, really had difficulty problem solving, kind of managing big emotions. And often that would sort of lead to angry responses. So we're playing the game, and he's having a blast, and he's doing all the work, and he's totally accessing it. And out of nowhere, he goes, oh my gosh, normally these questions would make me so mad, but this is so much fun. Can we keep playing?
That's awesome. And you're like, my work here is done.
Yes.
The whole world needs this. There you go. That's amazing. That's amazing.
It was really moving, and it was so amazing. So it was like, this is why I made this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, how many kids it's going to help? I mean, I just think with ADHD now, just as an example, but there's so many different neurodiverse challenges, now kids, or at least that we've become more aware of, and now knowing how to cope. I think it's really that. I think it's always existed. It's just that now now it has a name.
Aware talking about it.
And it just seems like there's so many different, this can cover any topic. But why do you think it's so important, now mid-pandemic? I mean, here we are. It's been 8 months, 9 months. Where are we? What day is it? Is it 2022 yet?
So with you.
What do you think the importance of Stomp It Out now is?
Oh my gosh. Kids' worlds are upside down. Adults have their lives upside down. There is immense stress that we didn't have before. There's so much exhaustion from just the decision-making process of our day-to-day. Our kids feel our own levels of stress, right? And the mental challenges here are they're great. And we have much more in the way of resources for like reading and writing, and here's some sensory stuff that we can do, and here's
right,
and we don't have a lot of resources to be supporting our kids' emotional health. And
right.
Stomp It Out is a resource to do that. It is a resource to do it in a fun way. It's a resource to do that in a way that kids are not going to be like, "Why are we doing this?" It's fun.
Right.
They love it. It's engaging, and they don't feel like they're doing a lot of work, but they're building life skills. They are building
Right.
skills that are critical for managing this time period that we're in, and also
Mm-hmm.
the day to day of like stress and anxiety that just exists normally. One of the things too that's important is that kids are still going through their day to day. They're not always thinking about the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic. They have
Right.
tons of normal stressors,
Right.
and those need to be addressed as well. And so it is so important for them right now to have resources, for families to have resources to be supporting our kids.
Absolutely. So where can we buy it? How do we get it? Is it on the shelves yet? Where are you in the
Okay. So yes,
distribution process?
Absolutely, you can get it on my website directly
Okay.
right now. I actually put it on a little sale for you guys. So
FYI.
Right. So www.stomp-it-out.com. And you can get it there, and in the next couple weeks, it'll also be available on Amazon.
Just in time for the holidays. Perfect gift.
Yeah.
Perfect gift for not just, your kids, for the whole family dynamic, because I think if kids are channeling and handling their emotions in a constructive way, that brings peace and unity in the whole household. So, and kudos to you.
And we're all at home all the time.
We're all stuck at home. So can adults play this? That's actually one of our questions, which I was going to ask. If anybody has any questions, please, by all means, chime in now, because we just have a few more minutes with Tara, but I'd love if anyone has any questions. So people have asked, can adults play this? And if not, are you going to come out with an adult version?
Yes, adults can and should play it. It's totally therapeutic for you too.
Absolutely.
And it's actually really fun for the kids if they see you being silly and playing with it. Like that is actually one way that they can like watch you do it with them.
Sure.
And it helps them to participate even more.
And another question was, how young is too young to start? I know you have on there 5 to 12. If you have kind of an emotionally advanced or intellectual child, is it possible to start at age 3 perhaps? Or
I have a 3.5-year-old who I have played a version of it with. So here's the deal with it. It's like the mats can be used really at any point.
Okay.
It's really different developmentally, right? So 5 means a different thing for every 5-year-old, right? So the thing that I would say is that some of the situations might be more advanced for a 3-year-old. However, every category that's addressed has a dry erase and a blank card, so you can customize this to exactly what you want your kids to work on. So my 3.5-year-old can play a version of this. She basically only wants to bunny hop everywhere, but that's fine. And so she can do that, and she can recognize what the emotions are. And so generally, how early is too early? There isn't really too early, except that, as just as a parent or as a nanny with gameplay with kids, they're going to be able to do certain parts and not others. And and so there'll be certain things that they can access now and certain things that they can't. But teaching kids how to identify their own feelings and how to be able to talk about that is absolutely something that a 3-year-old can start working on.
So in this game, is there like a reward system at all, or is it solely based on like the more they share, the more tokens they get, or is it not a reward based system? Like how does that kind of?
It's a good question. So it's up to you. There are tokens that are included in the game, and you can absolutely use them. It really depends on how you're playing, and one of the things that is really wonderful about the game is its versatility. So this game is played in a ton of different ways. It can be played with any kid, with kids who are typically developing, kids with learning differences, kids with on the autism spectrum. There's any child can play this game and gain quite a lot out of it. If your kids that you're playing with really respond to reward systems, go for it. Use the tokens. Go there.
Well, that's what I was going to also ask, if you wouldn't mind just sharing some other scenarios or kind of questions, that just as an example, just so people can kind of put in their head of, hey, this would really make sense for me and my family, or
Sure, sure. So there are, you mean in terms of like the situations that
just
are
a
brought up?
situation. I mean, I know a lot of kids that are dealing with divorce or something, for example, something, or death in the family, a pet dying. I mean, really heavy stuff. That it sounds like this game could be anything. I mean, it can be really light, or it could go to a darker place. Because it is all about the behavior, those emotions, and expressing oneself. So, can it go to that side? Can it help kids that are possibly going through a grief stage, for example?
Yeah, I mean, so what I would say is that this is a tool and it's an additive
Mm-hmm.
tool. Like if your kids are going through something that is really large, where they need more
Yeah.
support, then make sure that they have that support, right? So
Sure.
this is a tool that can add, right? So
Got it.
all of the red cards are all about big changes and transitions. That's also where all the COVID related information and situations are. So
Okay.
things like a grandparent passing away, things like your parents separating, things
Mm-hmm.
like your best friend, moves and changes schools, and now you're not sure who to hang out with.
Right.
Things that are just as relevant and huge in your life pre-COVID as they are now, and then also situations that are new to us around not having access to the people that we love in the same way, to
Right.
not feeling safe, to all those all things that are big. And one of the
Yeah.
suggestions that I would make around that is that there are some real heavy things that you can go through in this game. Absolutely. One of the ways to make that a little bit more manageable for the kids is to intersperse difficult situations with ones that are positive, so that they don't sort of have to stay in
Feel
this
stuck. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I love that. And again, for everyone who is following along, and we're going to put it on, the information under here once we post it, and also in our newsletter and on our website. But it's www.stomp-it-out.com, correct?
Yes, and I
Okay.
will. Should I type it in right now?
Yeah, sure. Go for it. And then the game will also be available directly on Amazon in a few weeks. So definitely be following that. But go and buy it, because what are you waiting for? It's a perfect gift too for not only your kids, your nanny, a child care provider in your life, and for yourself. I mean, parents will. It's a win-win for parents, as we said. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I so
Of course.
appreciate it.
I'm so excited to hear all about your success with this, and just to see, how it goes, and we're rooting you on, and just really, again, can't wait to gift it to people. So
thank you so much. And on the website, there's an email if you guys have questions. You can certainly ask them, and I can help direct you to see if this would be something that's good for you and your family.
Perfect. Thank you, Tara. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much.
Okay, take care. Bye.